My name is Bill Hoffmann, and I live in Harrisville. My wife has already spoken. First of all, I'd like to thank Representative Keeble for expressing the sentiment of our town. That was a great job, Representative. My comments, I know, would be more appropriate on January 6th. Unfortunately, I'm going to be out of town, and I just feel like there are things that I really would like to say. Since this project came to light, I've only missed a couple of meetings. I've attended dozens, with just about all of them having public comment. This is the first time that I'm speaking. My home is located on the end of a cul-de-sac, about 6 miles as the crow flies from the location of the power plant. My home is in a direct line from the proposed site to Woonsocket, which, as I'm sure you know, starts about 11 miles from the proposed site. Friends ask me why I'm so opposed to this project. It really won't have any effect on you, they tell me. Well, correct, as it relates to truck traffic and noise, but I breathe the air. I have a tomato garden in my yard. I draw my water from a well serviced by one of the large aquifers in Harrisville. I'll breathe it 24/7 when I'm home, and I'll drink it and eat it when it snows and rains and the pollution is carried to the ground. I will have the same exposure to this plant as all of you will. So let's talk for a second about the plant. Dual fuel, natural gas that comes mostly from fracking, and diesel oil, which, as you may know, is basically number 2 fuel oil, like many of you heat your homes with. Of course, we all know that diesel is so much dirtier, again, as many of you use it for heat. Also notable is that diesel produces more BTUs than natural gas, and therefore burns harder, thereby needing more water to cool. This is where the 1 million gallon plus of water usage a day comes from. For those of you who are not quite familiar with fracked gas, this natural gas is obtained from shale formations and requires pumping hundreds of thousands of gallons of water, sand, and chemicals into the ground to break apart rock and free the gas. Some of the water, along with large quantities of existing underground water, returns to the surface, and it can contain high levels of salt, drilling chemicals, heavy metals, and naturally occurring low-level radiation. These chemicals are contaminating groundwater and wells. Another issue with fracking, earthquakes. Oklahoma has experienced 1,904 earthquakes in the past 365 days. The state has admitted that the injection into deep underground wells of fluid byproducts from drilling operations is what's behind these quakes. So these issues are far away. How does it impact us? Well, Invenergy tells us that they will burn diesel for short periods of time, only when there is too much demand for gas and the supply is not adequate, or, they don't tell you this, throughout the year on and off to keep their 2 million gallon storage of fuel fresh. And by the way, you realize that 2 million gallons of oil with both turbines running will last around 4 days. They tell us that due to these supply issues, the bulk of the diesel usage will occur in the winter. And what they don't tell you is that they will build diesel when and if there is a disruption in the pipeline, like what occurred this past April when a Spectra pipeline exploded in Pennsylvania, affecting the Northeast. For the legal informed, this is called force majeure, an act of God, which can obviously cover other things as well. So here is the connection. How about if there are restrictions on fracking due to the issues I just outlined? If fracking is curtailed, the price of gas will go up. Maybe diesel will become more attractive. Can anyone say that things won't change with natural gas in the next 40 plus years? Maybe some of us won't be here, but what about our children and grandchildren? As bad as the natural gas pollution is, the pollution emitted from burning diesel fuel is much, much greater. And I am personally convinced there will be much, much more burning of oil over the course of the life of this plant than anyone would admit. Some say that we have the Ocean State Power Plant already in Burrillville, and I don't even know it's there. During the past 3 years worth of data that is available, this plant has had 10 of 12 quarters being in violation of the Clean Air Act. By the way, This plant is called a peaker plant. It only runs when there is a high demand for electricity. And my understanding is that it runs about 10 weeks a year. The Invenergy plant, at almost twice the size, will run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There will be a huge amount of pollution coming our way. I hope you all get to read Paul Roselli's letter with so much more detail on all of this that was posted today on Steve's site, Rhode-IslandFutures.org. I hope you also get to attend his seminars where he will be able to answer questions and give you a lot more detail on this. One final point. 2 million gallons of oil will require around 200 large tanker trucks. If they run oil 30 days a year, that would equate to around 1,500 truckloads, 50 per day. And if there's a problem with the water line, 1 million gallons of water a day would require another 100 truckloads. Total, 150 trucks a day. Broken down further, one truck every 10 minutes going in, 24 hours a day, so one truck also coming out. On average, one truck on these roads every 5 minutes. I challenge you to drive the narrow, winding, hilly roads, mostly in the winter, with a 90-degree sharp turn in Pasco that it will take to supply this plant. Do you have friends and relatives that live in this area? How would you feel selling the water and making this plant a reality when and if something happens? And over the course of 40 plus years, something will surely happen. So I realize this is a lot of information, but it's just a small part of what we have learned over the past year plus. And no one expects that our neighbors and friends in Woonsocket could possibly learn and absorb all that we have in such a short period of time. And Invenergy knows this. But let me say that no community stands to gain more money from Invenergy than Burrowville. We have lived with the thought of this monster coming. We have evaluated it from top to bottom, and we have replied with a resounding no. We have become educated over this long period of time, and we are not interested in their money. This newfound gold is very short-sighted. I'd like to end with a quote from Bernie Sanders that I think is very appropriate here when he was talking about the Dakota Access Pipeline. It is totally insane, and future generations will look back on us now and say, what in God's name were you doing? For us, our children, and our children's children, you have the ability and the responsibility to do the right thing for all of us here. Please join with us in saying no, and don't sell your precious water. Thank you.